Hey everyone, welcome to my weekly live. And today, again, we do every week is we have a weekly live session where I share my thoughts and I answer questions. The idea is to have 5 questions. So if you have 5 questions you want to share, then you can post them in the comments below and I'll answer them. It's also, and I ask me anything, we don't have enough questions or you previously sent me a question, but that's really what this is all about. And I'm doing this weekly call as a commitment to you, as a commitment to this community, as a commitment to all the people that I'm working with and coaching, as a means for us to grow this community, create accountability, and continue to help one another on our career and entrepreneurial and personal journeys, whatever that may be. So thank you so much for joining me. If you are joining, be sure to comment below, share your thoughts, share your insights, and also, ask any questions. Now, since I didn't get very many questions, what I'll do is I'll start throwing some questions out there and start answering them for you. And if you have any other ones you want to add, you're more than welcome to do that. So, I think the first question that I kind of want to get into was, and it's kind of inspired by I've been doing one of the things I'm doing now is I'm doing some LinkedIn stories. So LinkedIn has asked me to create some stories around amplifying diversity and around career growth development. So I did one the other day on how to be an ally, and it actually went live on LinkedIn, which was kind of cool. Then I did another one on career growth, which was like, what was my whole career story, which is kind of cool to share. And one of the questions that came up in the comments was, what are your thoughts on regrets? Do you have any regrets? And, there's people out there who say, and my answer to this is quite simply like, some people say, oh, I think it's bad to have regrets. And okay, sure. There's a certain bad part of having regrets. It's the same thing as it's bad to have envy and jealousy. It's bad to have anger. It's bad to have sadness in some ways, but in other ways, it's important to actually, humanize those emotions and accept them and then kind of move on from them, or what can you learn from them? For me personally, though, I think that when I think of regret, I think of, well, if I look back, are there things that I would do a little bit differently? And like, of course there are. Like you take all the mistakes you made, and yeah, that time I made that joke and insulted somebody. Yeah, I wouldn't want to do that again. Maybe that was a bad joke, or but I mean, I guess with regret, sometimes people say more deeper, more meaningful things. I mean, I think. Or it was, a lot of time was wasted, or things that maybe, it could have been avoided. And so when I think of regret, I think of things that are more longer term focused. And I think probably if I had, so you can look at every single thing of your life, in terms of like, I wish I spent more time with the kids, or I wish I spent more time with my parents. I wish I took care of my health better. But I think probably if there's two things I would say there's things I regret. One would be the 4 years I spent engineering. That was a long time. I think somewhere around a year or two, I should realize, this is not working out and I should do something else. And I think I probably could have got out of that sooner. I think that probably would have been a good one. People say, well, you learn a lot as you go through it. But I think probably within a year or two, I pretty much had learned everything I need to learn, and I wasn't really learning anything more. So that's probably one. And I think the other one definitely is the health thing. I think, having a better health mindset, being someone who's more physically active, eating better, things like that. I think it certainly would have been better to have that at an earlier age versus, the struggles that I have sometimes now. But I mean, but in terms of, regrets about the different paths I took and the things that didn't work and the things that worked and the failures and what, no, I don't really regret those because, they are part of the learning journey. I find regret only comes into play when it goes on for a very, very long time. And, you clearly didn't have to do it for 5, 10, 20 years. I could have learned my lesson and maybe done something or asked for help at a certain point, whether it's and some people I know, like here's an interesting thing. A lot of people who break up in marriages, there's issues with the marriage and the relationship for at least 5 years before they seek help. Now, for whatever reason that is whether they embarrassed about it, or they don't want to deal with the problem, or maybe they're finding a way they create some sort of narrative to help them get through it. But it takes them 5 years before they finally seek counseling or help. And by that point, most of them are pretty much over. And a counselor's job is to try to rectify it, or, and whatnot. And, I'll be honest, I saw counseling, but I didn't wait 5 years. I waited probably 6 months before I was like, no, you know what, this is not working. I need to find a better way to communicate and connect. And so we sought counseling, and then everything got a lot better. So we saved our marriage, or I repaired it. Let's say repaired it. So regret is like one of those words that a lot of people like or dislike, but I think that's a question that comes up, and I think it's fine to have a healthy discussion about it. And and I don't put too much into it. It's not like I'm like, oh my God, my life. No, it's just that if push came to shove, yeah, I'd say yeah, I probably would have left engineering earlier, and I probably would have done a better job on my health journey. So that's one question I get a lot of, and that goes me back to another really important question, which is do you make resolutions or New Year's resolutions? And New Year's resolutions, by their very nature, are you can make one if it inspires you to actually create the change you want and works for you, great. But not everybody works that way, and that's why a majority of New Year's resolutions fail. But for some, they actually work, which is great. So if it works for you, all power to you. I think that one of the things that one of my friends, Blake Fleischacker, does, he has this thing, instead of calling it New Year's resolutions, he has end of year evolutions. And the idea is that to reflect back on your year. Now, granted, 2020 for a lot of people and for many reasons. The pandemic by all means is the number one thing that's, we're all working from home. It's a complete shift in our lives, right? So much has changed about the world. And so, this is, so when you look back, the exercise was to look back at every single month and look at what happened. Because what you'll find is that the whole year, so when I did this exercise, and so write down in every month, 3 things you're grateful for. So I remember I looked at February and I was like, oh, okay, February, I had that really amazing LinkedIn local event. It sold out, stay in room only, very profitable, feeling really good about our company, where we're going and heading with our plan for 2020, and you see that, oh, okay, that's interesting. But then, everything kind of fell apart later on. And then another one, when I look at in the summer, during the pandemic, and my family and I started going on hikes in June and July. And we used to go on a hike every week. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. We're doing hikes, we're getting to nature, and I'm really appreciating nature, and I'm loving water, I'm loving trees, I'm loving grass. And I never did it before. And so, you find all these really amazing pieces of gratitude throughout the entire journey. And then the other part was, talk about your lows. So you talk about the different lows. And I remember when I did this years ago, about 5 years ago, I think, the first time I did this. And I talked about the fact, it was December, right? And I talked about the fact that my father-in-law died in May. This is 2016, so 4 years ago. Was it 2016 or 2015? I think it was 2000 and I'm trying to remember now. I think it was 2016, yeah. And I talked about my father-in-law. And then he actually asked people to stand up and share their highs or lows. So I said, fine, I'll share a low. I offered to share a high, didn't get picked, fine. I said, I'm always willing to, raise my hand. So I said, fine, I'll share a low. And I said, well, look, the low I want to talk about is that in May, I lost my father-in-law. And it's December now, 7 months later. And I still can't believe it. I'm still upset. I'm still angry. I'm still sad. It's still affecting me so much. And then I completely broke down in front of 100 people. I started crying because I couldn't believe I was still affected by this for so long. And it was a very deeply moving and powerful moment for me. But what was really powerful about it was the fact that, I still had a lot of unprocessed emotion that I needed to talk about. And so me sharing that was actually quite helpful to me, moving for the community, but helpful to me to do that. And it's been now 4 years. I'm still miss him. I still have trouble with it sometimes, because grief is something that everyone has a different journey in terms of how long it lasts or how it affects you. But that whole process of looking at your evolution, the highs and lows of 2020, right? And there's probably a lot of lows for a lot of people who are feeling a lot of frustration, but there's also a lot of good things, right? Another good thing actually about my own father, he had some medical issues, and now he's better. So I'm grateful for that, right? my kid, my kids may have done something kind of cool at school. Okay, my son had a good report card. Okay, that's kind of exciting. Like there's different things you can find. So I find the process of the evolutions is actually quite powerful versus the resolution thing. Resolutions really should come anytime. As soon as you're determined to try to change your life and be better at something, then that's the time to do it. Just start working on it, work with a coach, come up with a plan, have accountability in place, and start working on that process. I mean, the same way I'm doing with my weight and all that kind of stuff. So that's something, another thing to consider. And that's another good question that comes up. Now, if you have any questions that come up, please, share them below, or even after this recording is done in the community, you can certainly share a question. I'd love to hear what they are, for the most part. Let's see what else. I did another one. I did another one of the best workplace advice I ever got, and this one's actually kind of interesting. I shared like 5 or 6 tips on how to navigate the workplace. What's the best tips I ever got? And I'll share one with you. One of the best tips I ever got was from my manager, who I, didn't super get along with, but we had somewhat of an understanding. He was just different. He's just a different breed than I was. But he said, Bobby, you got to document everything. And I was like, what? He's like, just document anytime there's some sort of conflict or issue, or let's say you screwed something up, you need to document exactly what happened and are there any extenuating circumstances and things like that. And anytime you did something well, you should document and lay out the case for all the things you've done well. Because he said the truth is, as your manager, I have to keep tabs on these things, and I report to my director who also keeps tabs on these things, and HR keeps tabs on these things. So HR, your manager, and your manager are keeping an entire document on you, on everything you do, good or bad. And sometimes, the bad outweighs the good, and they focus on that. And sometimes the good outweighs the bad, they focus on that. But the truth is, if you want to defend yourself because you're not getting a promotion, or you want to get a promotion and you want to prove yourself, or there comes year-end time, or review time, stash review time, and all that kind of stuff, or even if you're getting left out of the company, you have to have a case to defend yourself and have that laid out clearly, and make sure it's all documented. Because if you don't document for yourself, if you know that your manager and your manager and HR are documenting about you, then you should document about yourself. And I was like, wow, I didn't even know that or think about that. It was actually quite quite a really compelling piece of advice. So, excuse me, in my next job, I started documenting everything I did well or not well, or if I did poorly, what was the reason behind that, what happened, so that there was a way to defend myself if people said, well, it's all your fault, or no, it was a team thing, or this happened, or I was waiting for this communication or whatnot. So that was really, really good advice. And he gave me another good advice, which is something I do today now, which is he said, everything's a story. So he said, at the time I was marketing and promoting grated cheese. So Kraft Parmesan, 100% Parmesan grated cheese, right? And he said, when you do your monthly results, tell the story of grated cheese. I'm like, the story of grated cheese? Yeah, just what's the story? What's the headline? What's the main thing? Because you can't tell 20 different details about this happened, and this story, and this. No, what's the main story? What's the biggest thing? And I'm like, that's a good idea. So I changed my whole process. Okay, the story this month, guys, is this. Boom, headline. Da 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 da. What does that mean? Boom, and I explained, and why is this important? And I told the whole story, and they're like, this is a really great way to build some excitement around something as bland as grated cheese. And so again, that storytelling piece was one of the first times that I heard someone telling me, even in the business world with the numbers and all the data and all that kind of stuff, there's a story to be told. And so now that was like 15 years ago, but I still hold that true today, that everything has a story to it, and you can create stories around anything that you're doing or thinking or talking about. And I'm actually doing a storytelling workshop today, a follow-up session with another group. So I'm looking forward to seeing what their stories are and how they're unfolding. But yeah, that's kind of another great question that people often ask. So I think I'll end it for today. But if you have any other questions, again, a big part of what we're trying to do here is we're trying to create engagement, growth, supporting each other. So if you have articles or projects or PowerPoints or things you want to share, if you have questions, you can ask. You can also join the call weekly. You can also check out the various tips and the various shares. You can share your own posts, And if you want some feedback, the community is here to help you with that. All right. So let me know, what you thought of this post. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you guys any time in the group or next week or whenever you guys decide to engage. All right. All the best. Take care.